since the Warriors won the championship, one big thing that people are talking about them, what makes it so impressive is that it's a homegrown championship. You know, Steph, Clay, Draymond, all drafted by the Warriors. In your opinion, does it make a championship more meaningful when it's quote unquote homegrown?
I think a lot of fans see it this way, but in what other walk of life does it like? Do we like dock people for not doing it at home? Like,
I think it matters in the NFL.
No,
Steve Young wasn't homegrown.
No, it wasn't. But I don't think it. I don't think it should matter through all sport. Because I don't think it should matter in life, right? Like, Grant, if you decided, like, I know you are homegrown, right? You're working around your area. But if you decided that you're gonna go take your thing to New York, and you had a successful career in New York, like, would people be like, oh, well, Grant didn't stay home. He didn't do it at home. Like, right?
It's true.
You know,
that doesn't make any sense at all.
No, like if you live in a different country that doesn't have the same opportunities here in the United States, and you move to the United States, like, oh, you moved to the United States, you cheated. Like, no, that's stupid, and you wouldn't say that. So, like, when you start talking about players and player movement, like, let's be honest, like, there are certain organizations that are better than other organizations. There are certain cities that are better than other cities. So if you wouldn't dock a person in their life for moving and having some movement, why would you do that to a player?
Okay, let's talk about it. So in the NBA is different because it's a player-driven league, and these players decide where they want to go. And most of these times, like, when a player leaves and goes to a new team, it's like usually LA, New York, Miami, big market. And so there are these, like, the Lakers a lot of times get these championships, Boston, because they're big market and players want to go there. I think what makes, and that's okay, that's fine, that's okay.
Right.
That's not a problem. But I think when you explain what makes the Spurs and what makes their dynasty unique, what made the Warriors dynasty unique is that they did not start off as necessary, like, destinations. Like, the Warriors were not at all. But they drafted this 3 and they became one. And the Spurs, they drafted Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, and they became one in what was originally, I mean, the Spurs were good for a while, but the Warriors were like the Clippers, man. The Warriors were like the Timberwolves. And I think part of Steph's legacy is that he changed that. He turned that all around. They're worth 10 times more than they were worth when he was drafted. So I think it's like a nice footnote, not even a footnote. It's a nice addition to their legacy, but it doesn't necessarily take away from LeBron's legacy that he played for a bunch of different teams, because he won on 3 different teams. That's something Steph didn't do.
Yeah, but I also think there's also a certain level, like the growth and the meaning of the Bay Area has grown since the Warriors
2009. That's true.
Crash, right? Like like the Bay Area is in the United States. You're talking about business. It's a pretty important place now.
It's true.
So
it is.
Like, it's not. And when you want to compare places, like, it's not the same as like winning a championship in Milwaukee. Like
that's true.
That's true. So I think
like, the Warriors were trash for about 15 years or more, and I think they had the longest streak in a league where more than half the teams make the playoffs. And the Warriors had the longest streak of missing the playoffs consecutively. They were a joke. So, I mean, remember that year? They went to the playoffs. They had the We Believe thing. Baron Davis. He left the next year to go to the Clippers. It was embarrassing. And, all of a sudden they started winning. They're a dynasty. Like, that never could have seen that. They're the most inept franchise. Now, they did have a new owner, and he brought in Andrew Wiggins and Kevin Durant. And it's the Niners. I mean, the Warriors are not necessarily a homegrown champions. No one is.
Yeah. I think you just said the key word is the owner, right? Like, ownership makes a big deal. Like, even in the NFL, when you've seen these incompetent teams, it all kind of starts at the top with the ownership. Like, I wouldn't say, we've talked about this before, I wouldn't say Jed York is the best owner, but I don't think he's the worst owner. There's far more. I don't think if you have an incompetent owner, I don't know that you're going to be winning in any league.
True. I just want to say, in terms of Steph's legacy, he preceded the new owner. Like, Steph was like, if Lacob had bought this team for $450 million and Steph wasn't on the team, what would they be right now? Who knows? They might be a good team. They might not. Would they have championships? I don't think so. I think the fact that, I mean, Steph's the bridge between the bad and the good. Don Nelson drafted, not that Don Nelson was bad, but that was the other era. And then he made that a good investment for Joe Lacob. Then Jerry West came in and brought in Klay Thompson, who was the perfect sidekick for. But I'm just saying, Steph was kind of like, he made it all possible here. And I think that's when you talk about Steph's legacy, the fact that he was on one team, the fact that that in the NBA, these stars have such a big role in putting teams together, and he's actually pretty good at it, as opposed to LeBron, who's put together some ridiculous teams on the Lakers, including this current one with Russell Westbrook. Like, come on. Like, LeBron still hasn't figured out that floor spacing matters in 2022. He's constantly putting teams together that have no shooting. And Steph gets it. I'm just saying.
His other teams were pretty good, though. I mean, I think as we're seeing this whole thing in Brooklyn play out, I mean, we have to start giving LeBron.
Traded Wiggins for Kevin Love, though? That wasn't good.
But it worked out. He won a championship in Cleveland.
But never because of Kevin.
He beat the Warriors. He beat the Warriors.
Kevin didn't do anything. I went to college with Kevin. Kevin, when he was I call him Kevin because he's a year younger than me. He was there. Kevin had my look. This was 2007, and we both had the chin strap. It's a terrible time. But he stole my look. I maintain that he saw me on campus. He was like, "Oh, I want to look just like him." Kevin, I'm on to you.
He was solid with the Cavaliers.
Timberland. He couldn't defend anyone
during that time. No,
he was so bad on defense, as opposed to Wiggins.
He did have what you just said was spacing because he could hit threes outside.
Yeah, you're right.
But
anyway, Kevin,
don't you think what this whole thing with it's going on with Kyrie actually makes LeBron look better? Because LeBron's like the one guy that was able to actually win with Kyrie. Everywhere else Kyrie goes, it's a dumpster fire.
Dude, LeBron's legacy is pretty ironclad. I mean, if he's not the greatest player of all time, he's in the conversation. He's had the most longevity of any great player ever. To me, I mean, him, Curry, LeBron, him, Jordan, Bill Russell, those four, pretty much the Mount Rushmore of basketball, in my opinion. Maybe I'm too high on Curry because I'm local here, but I don't know.
I think what you can say about LeBron and Curry, though, probably you couldn't say about Jordan. I think both those guys are more do more for the community, or more about the community. Jordan does, I think, more stuff now, I guess, but now that they're actually playing, like both those guys, that by all counts, like Steph and LeBron are very good with that on that aspect of, handling community relations, being very good with stuff outside the NBA.
Yeah. I just feel like Steph kind of gets a little bit of the Kobe treatment because he never left the Warriors. There's something about that. Kobe never left the Lakers. LeBron's been on a bunch of teams. And not that it takes away from his legacy, but I think for Kevin Durant, it takes away from his. LeBron won in 3 different places. Kevin didn't. It's like, What are you looking for? Yeah.
And then LeBron really didn't attach himself with like people that think the world's flat and things like you know what I mean? Like if you attach yourself with,
Can you prove that it's not? Do you have proof? Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
There's plenty of people that try to prove you that it is. Like if you go on YouTube, they'll
Jeez. All right. Anyway, homegrown championships. It's a laughable idea in the NFL because what was the Niners' last championship? Steve Young, Deion Sanders, Ken Norton Jr.
The Rams won one last year with a bunch of guys that weren't homegrown.
The Bucks won it with Tom freaking Brady. Yeah, I mean, are the Rams supposed to like apologize because they won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford? Like he's never even drafted them. So
and if Jimmy Garoppolo was like a top 5 quarterback, I don't think Niners fans would be like, oh man, like we gotta get a different quarterback because he's not homegrown. Like
this to me is a basketball conversation, and basketball is always like needlessly wrapped up in legacy. And there's they just move the goalposts constantly. It's 1 week it's about finals MVPs, as if that fucking matters. Like that's voted on by the media. Since when is that the end all be all? I mean, and it's only for certain players. It only mattered for Curry, but like Magic Johnson, there were times when Kareem was the finals MVP or James Worthy was the finals MVP. No one cares that Magic wasn't the finals MVP every single time.
Yeah.
No one cares.
When Iguodala won that, it wasn't like
that was a joke.
You're right. It wasn't like, oh, Iguodala's the best player on the Warriors. Like,
No.
No.
It was like, oh, his defense was invaluable. Yeah, but LeBron still averaged like 35 points a game in that series. So what are we talking about?
I mean, look at all the times LeBron, like the years that LeBron has had, he hasn't won. Hasn't he only won one league MVP?
I think he's won 2. Let me see. That's Kobe who only won 1. Kobe won 1 because Nash won 2. Hold on, LeBron James. What did you do? Overview. I don't know, man. I'm getting nervous. No, he's a 4-time MVP. Oh, okay. No, man, his resume is legit for sure.
But I mean, you could theoretically look at LeBron and think that he could have won that. He could have won that shit like 8 times.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. His legacy is going to be longevity, man. He's going to be doing this till he's 40.
Almost in this series, this past series, I was thinking like, are they going to give the MVP to Andrew Wiggins? Like,
I don't know why the NBA wants to downplay Curry's legacy so much. He's good for the league.
Yeah, he's great for the league.
I mean, they played up Bird and Magic so much in the 80s and made those two larger than life. Like, why wouldn't you do that for Curry?
Right.
I mean, you do it for all your stars.
He's a great, like, why wouldn't you want to put guys like LeBron and Curry, like, as your face of the league? Those guys don't get in trouble off the court. Like,
I don't follow, like, professional soccer in Europe, but do they do this stuff in Europe? Like, Messi's not that great. He's not as good as people say. Like, everyone just worships these guys over there, right? I don't know.
Probably.
I would imagine. Cristiano Ronaldo's overrated. It's like, okay.
I mean, they did make that fucked up statue of him, right? Like, remember that?
Hey, real quick before we leave, whose side do you fall on? Skip Bayless or Russ Westbrook?
Skip Bayless or Russ Westbrook? I
think you're allowed to call a guy a nickname, man. I think you're allowed to make fun of someone's name. Sorry.
Like, I just think I think in general players are starting to get super sensitive about media and things like that.
I said Westbrook flashed on like fans in the stands before too. He's always getting mad at people when people say to him. What is it gonna be like like tennis soon where you just have to watch in silence? Sir, they're playing basketball right now.
In regards to Skip, like if you watch, like 90% of his takes, you can figure out why he has the takes. Like, let's look at Russell Westbrook. Okay, why doesn't he like Russell Westbrook? Why? Because he's an Oklahoma City guy and he feels some type of way towards Russell Westbrook.
He's been not that I follow Skip, but I mean he's been ripping on Westbrook for 10 years since back when he was on Oklahoma City. I just feel like Skip gets a lot of hate, but what he says is pretty tame. I mean, is he that much different than Colin Cowherd? This is the thing. Like, Draymond is going after Skip all the time, You work for Colin Cowherd. They're the same. What is the deal? Where is your moral high ground here? I don't understand that at all. They're the same, except Skip's from Texas or whatever.
Money changes your moral high ground, and that's where he's getting.
Draymond's sitting there acting like there's a difference, or that he doesn't understand the implied, hypocrisy of it.
Right.
You're putting cash in Colin Cowherd's bank account while saying that Skip Bayless is immoral. Like, come on, dude. Hot takes are the thing of the past. You work for Mr. Hot Take.
Yeah.
You give hot takes.
I do like Shannon Sharp though. He's
hilarious.